Make sure you're okay with this and forward Councillor Earl to the chair. Excellent. Would you like to come up, Councillor Earl?
Yes. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, members of the public. Before we begin, I'll have to go through this protocol with you. Okay. All visitors must sign into the visitor book at the entrance to Kilncraigs. This includes council staff from other buildings. There are no planned fire evacuation drill or alarm tests today. If the fire alarm is activated during the visit, you must exit the building immediately. The council officers will direct you to the nearest fire exit and will escort visitors to the building fire assembly point beside the Silver Man at the top of the Parliament Walk. Kilncraig staff should report to the floor's assembly point. You should remain at your assembly point until directed to reoccupy the building and only re-enter once the fire marshal has advised it is safe to do so. Please do not attempt to leave the site by vehicle until cleared to do so by the fire marshal to ensure access routes are kept clear for emergency vehicles. Please note that this is a public meeting and that members of the public may be in attendance. The meeting will be recorded by the clerk and published online for public viewing. The taking of photographs, including screenshots, audio or video recordings, are not permitted during the meetings unless with the express permission of the convener. The members attending virtually activate their cameras where possible to enable you to join by video, and can all attendees mute your microphones when not speaking. Please do not come in during items unless I invite you to do so. If members attending virtually wish to speak on any point, please indicate by clicking on the Raise Your Hand button. And members in the chamber should also raise their hand, and I will bring you in at the appropriate time. If members have not been able to access all papers for the meeting, would you please indicate? No. Today we'll hear each of the items set in the agenda. and I'll invite the officer to present the paper, and members will then have the opportunity to ask questions before we proceed to debate and decision. I'll now ask the clerk to take the roll call to confirm attendance at this meeting, and would ask that members indicate if they wish to declare an interest.
I would not propose to take a roll call. I think what I'll do is confirm the apologies for this committee, which is Councillor Rennie, Councillor Coyne, George, and I always get this name wrong.
Marcinkiewicz.
Reverend Steinway Cha, and Councillor Quinn and Councillor Keogh. And any declarations of interest? That's none, Chair.
Yeah, I declare we're all interested. We'll now move to item 3 on the agenda, which are the minutes of the previous meeting held on Thursday, the 30th of June in John Craigs. Page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9, and page 10, and page 11. Is that a true and accurate record? Yep, agreed. We'll now move to item 4 on the agenda. This is a report on the exceptions from the application of contract standing orders, and I believe we've got Derek Clark to speak to this paper.
Good morning, Derek. Chair, and good morning, committee. Thank you for taking this paper. This is the exception from the application of contract standing orders. Its purpose is to detail any exceptions that have been reported to ourselves, right, and it gets reported to your next available audit and scrutiny committee. It's then obviously to provide some detail on these exceptions to contract standing orders, which have been submitted in the last quarter. Last quarter, there's been 4 exceptions that have been considered since that last report, and they're detailed within the paper. And the committee is asked to note this report, commenting and challenges as appropriate. I'm happy to take any comments and any questions that you may well have. Thank you.
I apologise to members of the public who may be waiting. Okay, we'll just move on. Sorry about this delay, but technical stuff. Are there any questions on the paper? Phil?
Thanks, Chair. Derek, just a quick question on 332, on the imposal contract. It talks about being for a 4-month period with 2 months contingency. Does that time frame lead to the completion of the work, or is there potential for that to come back for further funds to be required? And given the 2 months of its contingency, the figure of 149,000, does that figure reduce if we want to use the 4 months, if it's done within the 4 months?
Thank you, Councillor. This particular project has actually been done in several phases, and this was the exception to cover that particular phase. So that value, including that contingency, will cover that particular phase for that project. I anticipate there may well be other phases potentially, but for this particular component part of that project, that is sufficient to do that.
So if 4 months is sufficient for this particular phase, Derek, does that 159 come down to 100, or does it?
No, the value, Councillor, is for the total amount, including the contingency.
Contingency is not required. Does that figure change, or is it that the figure no matter whether it's 4 months or 6 months?
My understanding is the contingency will probably be required, so it will be the full amount. But yes, you're correct, it will be slightly less if there is no contingency applied.
Are there any questions? Okay. Can we have a move on the second of the paper, please? Do you wish to make the papers? Do we accept the paper? Yes, we accept it. Item 5 is the question. Item 5 is the risk strategy annual report. This will be presented by Shri Jardi. Morning, Shri.
Good morning, thank you, Chair. So this report presents the corporate risk report, incorporating the first annual update on the risk management strategy approved in 2023 and the regular quarterly update on the Council's risk register. The main part of the report is split into 4 appendices, with appendices A to C detailing our corporate management approaches, risk appetite statement, development and progress since October 2023, along with priorities for years 2 and 3. And Appendix B provides the current risk profile at the end of Q1 24-25. This is the first time this report has been presented in this format, and it seeks to show a focus on continuous improvement and demonstrate organisational maturity in our risk management and planning processes, following feedback, including that from committee members. In terms of the current risk profile at Appendix D, our review has recommended a number of changes. This includes 3 risks being transferred from the corporate register to service registers, 3 risks reducing in score and 1 risk increasing in score, and these changes are set out in the paper. 18 risks currently remain on the register, with 10 being treated and 5 being tolerated and 3 due to be transferred. I'm joined by my colleague Judy Richardson on the screen, and between us we would be happy to answer any questions on the report.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Judy. Do members have any questions? Councillor Benny?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just one thing, because of all the changes of it, I don't want to say it this way, but it's the only way I can think of. Have we missed out anything, or have we changed to make it better looking rather than seeing the exact amount that's the problem is?
I think we've reviewed the whole process and approach to be much more robust, Councillor Benny. I think a lot of work has been taken forward by Judy on the risk appetite, a lot of benchmarking with other areas. We've worked with our insurers, Gallagher Bassett, so I think we've got a much more robust risk management process. We've also got improvement actions in there which we didn't have previously. And in terms of the current risk register, we continue to review that on a regular basis with directors and senior managers. So those risks on the register, the 18 at the moment, they're under regular review, and again, bringing that back to committee on a regular basis.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Kenny. Just looking through the report, there are a lot of risks we are taking that are obviously red and they're at kind of treat rather than tolerate, etc. What's the impact of that? Because obviously, it seems we're having to take actions to address them because they're at that point. It would have impacts kind of throughout the organisation.
Yeah, so I'll maybe invite Judy in just to give an explanation about how we review and manage and allocate how we treat some of these risks in a wee minute. But I think a number of the risks are things out with our control, I suppose. So if you look at some of the current risks on the register that are tolerated, they are things that we can put plans in place to mitigate or respond to, but not necessarily treat some of those risks. But I'll maybe invite Judy in if she's there just to give a bit more of a technical explanation.
Yeah, I think I would say that a lot of the issue with this report is that we report risk in isolation, and actually it should be considered in the context of all the things we are achieving despite these things that we're managing alongside it. So we're hoping to integrate risk reporting with a lot of other sort of factors such as data, performance reporting, and actions and benefits realisation. So obviously the achievement of outcomes. And I think it's sort of, the risk is always the sort of the second step. It's sort of, this is what we're aiming for, what might get in the way. So I think these are basically all of the factors that we need to be considering with every business decision that we make. So I think that is the sort of context around the report, is that while we have to be managing all of these things in the background, some of them, as you say, are out with our control. So there are many wide global issues going on at the moment, and obviously we are recovering from some of the most difficult years. So I think the sort of context of it is that we are sort of monitoring and managing these issues in the background, but at the same time we need to be looking at all the other reports that we're presenting, all the other things we're achieving, and all the the services that we are delivering effectively alongside managing these issues in the background.
Are there any other questions?
Thanks, Chair. See on page 38, in terms of the risk management and with an insurance plan, it talks about insurance claims closed with payment. There's a statement here that talks about council would aim to defend as many claims as possible. Payments may be made if the cost of court proceedings would exceed the value of the claim. I take it that's heavily caveated. It's not simply the only measure by which that decision would be taken.
Sorry, can I ask you to repeat the question because I was caught up with something I was speaking to the chair with.
So in terms of the insurance claim,
what page are you on?
Page 38, second box, it talks about council defending as many claims as possible, but where the cost of going to court would exceed the claim, then they settle the claim. Now, I understand that's quite normal practice from my own line of work, but there's nothing in there that talks about that being caveated in some way. It talks as if that's the measure by which the decision will be taken. I'm assuming that's not correct. There are other factors that will be involved in that decision making. Yeah, there'll be numerous factors looking at, when they go to look at the claim in general. In fact, sometimes before it even gets to the insurers, the council potentially look at the potential claim that's come through and makes a decision itself. Officers has to make that payout before even going to anywhere near the insurers. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's looked at, and certainly I know that I have been involved in probably 2 or 3 bigger claims, which we know have come through the books, which is I've had some input with the insurers and those lawyers as well in relation to dealing with those claims. Okay, so just below that, in terms of the value of insurance claims paid, it's other than the reduction in the numbers of that, the value of the claims has gone down significantly over those 3 columns from 92,041 down to 5.5. How's that been achieved? Is this different types of claims coming in, or has there been a different approach been taken? Yeah, I mean, normally we'd have my colleague Gillian here. Unfortunately, she's not able to attend today, who deals with the insurance, but actually it's been reduced quite a lot in terms of but I think that actually has something to do with the fact that actually some of these claims, these kind of ones that you actually can make, slightly smaller ones, are actually being dealt with by the services themselves in terms of payouts, so they're not going through the insurance at the moment. So I'm not convinced that it's kind of an absolute true reflection, but I'm happy to come back to you on that point. Is that okay?
Any other questions? Councillor Keogh has joined us. No other questions? Do members wish to debate people? Oh, yeah. Have a proposal in a second?
Yeah, I'm happy to propose a paper, and I just want to say a few words, I suppose. There's a lot.
I'll put one for the second.
Yeah, there's obviously a lot of risks here that are sitting at red and street, which is obviously concerning, but I think as has been said, a lot of these are within our control. One of these really is the impact of poverty, inequality and changing demographics. I think we've discussed a lot about this at the council previously, where the factors out with the council really have an impact on this. That being said, I didn't really want to mention one risk in here that's kind of moved to green, in spite of all the external factors, and that's the attainment gap. You'll not see this on the news, or you'll not see it kind of reported widely, but the poverty-related attainment gap in club manager is decreasing, and I think that's something that we should be quite proud of. I think the work that has been going on between Lorraine, Colin and our team around about the family wellbeing partnership and all the external supports that have been put in place to really address the attainment gap are starting to show fruit. That's now been taken off the corporate risk register and will be managed within the service, which is certainly a move in the right direction, and I really didn't want this meeting to go by without highlighting that, really, because there's a lot of really good work going on there. Thanks.
Can we second it?
A second.
Are there any other comments? Any other comments?
You need to put your mic on.
Yeah, I see no other comments getting made. Do you all agree? Put your hands. Now we move on to item 6 on the agenda. The Community Wellbeing Report. I have Lorraine Sander to present it.
Thank you. We've got a full suite of officers and I'll bring them up. We've got a full suite of officers from people and I'll bring them forward as and when they're required, rather than us crowd the table too much, because I think there's about 10 of us here today. So I'm joined with Colin Bruce, Chief Education Officer, and Sharon Robertson, Chief Social Work Officer, to present this report today. So this report provides the annual progress on the full range of People Directorate plans for the year 23 to 24, and it also includes the People Business Plan. It's a different type of approach that we've taken this year that we're presenting. We have 10 plans within the People Directorate, which normally would come forward separately to Audit and Scrutiny. And what we've done today in this report is combine them into one. So it's a different approach that we've trialled, and it's an evolving approach, I would say, in terms of where we've got to. The work that led to this approach was the result of a massive data mapping exercise that we undertook across all those 10 plans, and established that many of them had overlapping priorities and outcomes. So we thought that it made more sense to bring them together in one plan, particularly when we have such a focus on addressing disadvantage and the impacts of poverty in the People Directorate. Some of the plans are statutory plans and they will be submitted to the Scottish Government, and they also include some of the Alliance Partnership plans, but they're all combined and we'll take them to the Alliance in October for their approval. Overall, we will bring forward a plan to Council in August as well, which will take the same approach to go forward for 24-25, and very much we're trying to align that with the developments around the local outcome improvement plan. The report that you have in front of you very much focuses on impact, outcomes and data. And it does demonstrate some significant impact in areas, and one of those Councillor Porson has just mentioned in terms of improvement in attainment, but there's other significant outcomes there across people that I'd like to highlight. In particular, the reduction in external placements for looked after care experienced children, the fact that we've managed to support more parents into employment, particularly through the Family Wellbeing Partnership and the Child Wellbeing Partnership work. We've managed to continue to support our children's swimming, which this council approved the approach to that, and that means that we've got children who are now confident in swimming across Clackmannanshire. Reduction in suicide harm for children. There's been an extensive piece of work done in partnership, but led by the educational psychologist team in terms of addressing harm to children, and that is another area that's been a real focus for us. Decrease in children and young people subject to child protection registration, improvement in follow-up destination rates, and a reduction in domestic abuse levels, an increase in the number of women supported. And one of our actions for our business plan last year was to continue to deliver on the new Lochie School and Wellbeing Hub, which continues to be on track. So there's a number of further detail areas within the report, and as I say, officers are here to take questions, and we're happy to ask committee to endorse both the approach as well as scrutinise the information in front of you. Thank you, Chair.
The members have any questions on the report? I just have one question that you've answered it. Robert? Member of the public, do they?
Do you know what, I do have a question, is that right? I don't know whether you're going to answer it or not, Lorraine. I'm looking at page 78 and we're talking about collaboration with partners and local employment partnership. And we're talking about the city region deal with kind of target groups, etc. Women and girls, people with disability, and those living in areas with the highest level of deprivation.
Yeah, can you look at the microphone?
Okay, I'm not entirely sure that you're going to be able to answer this one, but I was really kind of looking for a wee bit of an update on where we are with the work with local employability partnership, the city region deal, and what impact that we're starting to have on these specific demographics. We are halfway through the term of the city region deal, and I would be hoping to see some kind of movement on these sorts of areas, and at this point in time I'm not really seeing it.
I don't think I can give you a full answer on that. As you know, I don't lead on the City Region deal or the local employability partnership, but what I can say is that one of our actions as we go forward into 24-25, which you'll see when the plan comes forward to council, is to increase our involvement with the LEP to maximise the opportunities for young people through the city deal and through the work that the LEP are doing in terms of allocating the No One Left Behind funding. So we have been working in partnership with the team, Katrina Scott, who's unfortunately not here today, but has been leading on that work. But in terms of impact from it, I can't say that there has been any definitive impact that I'm aware of, but Colin, you might want to add a bit more.
Similar to Lorraine, so not an answer about the impact, and I think that says something about it, but we want to change that. So we've developed the youth forum, lots of young people across the county from primary to secondary will be involved, and I've already met with the team that are leading that, talking about that, you know, a bit of a pushback round about that we've got leaders here that have voice, let's mobilise them in that space. We've got a meeting in September, I think it's the first week in September, that'll be on the agenda for that group, and the participation of girls in that is key as well. So, okay.
So just I feel like I really need to ask some questions here, because there's been so much work put in the report. We've got a lot of officers kind of sitting here around, you know, kind of the table and put so much effort into it, and I really don't want you to think that, you know, it's not been scrutinised, etc. When it comes to the promise, we put a significant amount of effort and resources into, you know, making sure that we fulfil the promise as an organisation. There's a couple of questions here, I suppose. Are we seeing the impact of that? I know that we've invested in, like, our virtual head teacher. I know that we've been putting measures in place such as free school meals, such as additional support. So are we starting to see that kind of bearing through in the outcomes for our care experienced young people? And I guess I'm going to ask that question I ask a lot. It's not just Management Council's responsibility to kind of keep the promise. So what sort of, I suppose, work and relationships are we building up with our partners to make sure that we collectively keep the promise?
Well, thank you, Councillor Forson. I think the work that we are doing on the promise is showing impact, and I think there's a number of areas that we would want to highlight, both from Sharon's perspective and Colin's, in terms of those outcomes improving for our care experienced children and young people. And in addition, there is a partnership point that I'll come back to, but I think if I can hand over to Sharon, first and foremost, just to try and pick out some of the impacts that she would already want to highlight in terms of the number of the reduction in young people, for example, in terms of our stats. Is there areas, Sharon, that you would particularly want to highlight? You can bring Joanne forward if that helps. Joanne and Gillian.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Forson. So in terms of the partnership approach, so through our Children's Strategic Services Partnership, the promise is particular working stream, and we have got a multi-agency approach. We've got a subgroup to deliver on the promise, and that involves a range of partners across the community plan and partnership, and they're involved in taking forward the promise plan as it stands for the next 3 years. So that is monitored through the Children's Strategic Partnership Group and through our Children Young People's Board as well, just in terms of that governance and assurance, in terms of ensuring that we do actually have multi-agency representation in taking forward the promise, and it isn't just the responsibility of the council, as you point out. So within the Children's Services annual report, which will go to Scottish Government, we do embed the achievements that are coming forward within the promise plan, and I'll just point out a few, and then Joanne can perhaps come in on a few things. So we report on them through the pillars of the promise. So, for example, under Good Childhood, we have got increased support to care experienced young people in education. We've been tracking the quality assurance approaches in terms of our looked after children who are both looked after at home and away from home. We've developed collaborative approaches with Allo Academy, and that we've got best practice links with Education Scotland. So we've mentioned the virtual head teacher and the work that Joanne's been doing in collaboration with that as well, and Joanne can come in. But importantly, we've also established the CALA, the Active Learning Academy. So that's offering more enhanced bespoke education provision for our care experienced young people. And the first cohort will begin actually in August now. They're going back to school, so we'll be able to give you an update in terms of how actually that initiative is improving, as you say, better outcomes for our care experienced young people. There is a whole range of quite a lot of information here, which we can share with you if you would prefer separately, but there is quite a number of initiatives. Do you want to talk just about some of the Commission and the other work under home family support and supporting the workforce?
Good morning, everybody. Thank you. I think it's very difficult to quantify just the extent of the work that's been going on in relation to the promise within a condensed report. I think one of the most critical things that we all recognise is the need for our children to grow up locally in Clackmannanshire. So one of the key things we have been doing is around really building our fostering community and working very hard in terms of how we support foster carers, kinship carers and adopters in Clacks. And we are starting to see some payoff from that approach, certainly in terms of utilising our own resource more effectively. We are retaining our foster carers, but we are also in a position where we are starting to see changes in the recruitment of foster carers. So, for example, we currently have one new foster carer who's been approved and 6 who are currently going through the process of training and assessment with a view to approval. So we're seeing some real payoff in terms of the reputational impact of our fostering service in the community and the confidence that foster carers and prospective carers have in us within our own community. And I suppose the reason I led with that was that in terms of keeping the promise and all the activity that we are doing, whether it's through education support for our care experienced young people within schools, whether it's around employability through care after support, we know that we can support our young people far better locally than we can do when they're out with the authority and we have less input, if you like, in terms of some of the issues around being able to wrap around our young people. I think our progress in relation to siblings is worth highlighting as well. We aren't able to benchmark at the moment how we compare to other local authorities, but we are in probably a fairly unique position, and it's perhaps our size that lets us do that. But we have a really good overview and good data around our placement of sibling groups in Clackmannanshire. And while we can't compare that data to other local authorities at the moment, we have a high proportion of children who are looked after with their brothers and sisters in their own community, in the same placement. And predominantly children who are not playing with brothers and sisters is for the reason that it wouldn't be the right thing for them. It's due to their individual needs rather than resource-led decisions. So that is a real positive for us in terms of the promise. In terms of just, I don't think I could ever go through it all, but in terms of just answering the first question, Councillor Forson around the promise being wider than just the council. And like Sharon said, we do have really good buy-in through the Children's Services Partnership, but we are continuing to try and build on that, to continue with support from the Promise Scotland to help our partners understand and visualise just what their role is in terms of the promise, because the promise is a very broad area of policy. It's not just about looked after children, and we've been doing a bit of work in terms of trying to bring everybody in through their own particular lens and think about ways that we can collaborate. And one example of that is through we have a Through Care After Hub that's running at the moment, and we're sort of engaging with all our different partners as well, supported by the third sector, to bring different organisations in to be involved in that.
Okay, yeah, just to give some of the sort of outcomes from the educational sort of perspective, is absolutely partnership work, so it's not just sitting in the schools, it's all the work that's going on that Joanne's just absolutely described. But where that leads to is we have got good measures round about the destinations of learners that are care experience leaving school. We tend to be good at this, getting learners into a college place or employment and such like, but it's always been a challenge for those in care experienced in last years that we've seen our best in that space. And then the follow-up was, so you look at that, say September, October time, but you look 6 months after they've left school and are they still in something? And again, for care experienced learners, it was one of our best performances in that space. So that was key, and key to that was some of the work that Ellen mentioned from the virtual head teacher, who managed to get a lot of our learners on sort of leadership academies in a start, and was relentless on knocking the door and dragging them into experiences, and let's hope they stick. We'll keep supporting. Other key areas that we're seeing improvement is attainment, particularly across the primary levels of care experienced learners and up to level 5, but we have still work to do to get that higher gold standard. So there's always areas for improvement, we'll strive to do that. And finally, just to tie up, the work regarding keeping the Promise Awards, I know there was a session with elected members that Joanne and Forbes led, but also across all our schools who have all signed up to this, is a real, you won't see another authority with that buy-in over the last 12 months. It's been a real, really impactful approach.
Got another question, sorry, apologies. Moving on now to the Violence Against Women and Girls report on a page. The council made a conscious decision to invest some funds to, I suppose, pay for a coordinator because we recognise the importance this issue has in our communities. And I'm just wondering if we can get a wee bit of an update on the impact of that funding. Hopefully, it will have had some positive outcomes there. That would be great.
Thank you very much, Councillor Forson. I'll ask Scott MacDonald to come forward, but while he's doing that. So we're talking about page 88 on the report, I think, aren't we, in terms of the summary report? So just briefly, so that the format that we've put into this report is that each specific area continues to have a report on a page. Just to summarise the outcomes, as we move forward, we would actually hope to move away from those individual reports on page anyway, as it becomes to combine itself even more. But with that money, we were able to appoint a Violence Against Women and Girls coordinator who's been extremely active, and Scott will be able to summarise some of the work that Jenny Sanchez, who took up that post, has been doing and what she's achieved so far. But I think there's a broader picture in terms of some of the work that Scott's been leading on in terms of this area too.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. Councillor Forson, first of all, the money that was allocated for the funding for the full-time Violence Against Women and Girls coordinator was very much welcomed and very much needed, as the council recognised. What I would say is that in the last 4 months that post has been filled, Jenny Sanchez has been incredibly busy, both locally and nationally, working with statutory in statutory areas, but also working in partnership with the third sector as well. And it ties in with something you said earlier about responsibilities. And again, violence against women and girls doesn't solely sit with the council as well. And it's good to see that Jenny's been able to utilise her time to draw on all services to actually look at what it is that we are doing and also what it is that we're doing well. One of our tasks just now is how do we devise measurable outcomes? So I can hopefully sit here in the future and give you exact stats and figures and evidence of that. We have a lot of qualitative data already about the impact of the work that we're doing. There is a lot of good practice that's going on within Click Manager, and we are just pulling all that together and aligning it. And that allows us to share services, share resources. Lorraine mentioned there we're doing a lot of new initiatives, earlier interventions. With the support of Jenny, we've been able to tap into funding, but not just funding, resources as well. And Jenny will continue to look for additional funding sources moving forward. The work that we are doing, not just Jenny, but everyone within Click Manager, has been recognised by the Improvement Service, the Scottish Government. We had a visit from them just a couple of weeks back, and we've been invited to give some examples of the practice that we're doing, the collaborative working. And again, Jenny's role is key to coordinating that and pulling it all together. The work that we're doing also aligns with the Community Justice Scotland aims and objectives. So whilst we are targeting earlier support for those who are at risk of coming into the criminal justice system, what we are now doing as well through mechanisms like Strive and partnership working with Police Scotland, we are able to offer supports to women and children affected by domestic violence as well. And we've just broadened that, and in partnership with SACRO, we have a post advert just now for another full-time women's worker. So that's for practical support, and that post in itself will also include a role within tenancy support, and that's partially funded by housing. Moving forward, working in partnership with Click Manager Women's Aid, we are looking to see if we can again develop support groups and tying into employability and pathways moving forward as well. So Jenny's been very busy, but so have a lot of people in relation to what we've been able to do with that funding in that post.
Just to be follow up on this, obviously the Scottish Government just reported recently the new kind of Equally Safe report, which I suppose guides a lot of the work that's going on there. And I know in the past that perhaps it's maybe a wee bit difficult for Click Manager to kind of deliver because our funding levels are so small from the government. Has there been kind of any movement in that? Are we assured that they've been listening and that perhaps the new plan is maybe going to be a bit better for Click Manager?
Yeah, thank you. The new plan, what's really good to see in terms of the revised Equally Safe plan is that a lot of the areas that they have suggested need to be developed are areas that we have already targeted within our Violence Against Women and Girls strategy. So it's great to see that we're on not only we're on the right track, but also we are starting to develop services and supports to address that. So I would suggest that we're quite far on with that, and as a result of that, I have met with a number of local authorities who have asked to come out and visit us to see what we're doing in that area. What's key to that is exactly what you raised about the funding. On the back of the Violence Against Women and Girls Independent Funding Review, there is recognition that funding requires to be sustainable and it needs to be immediate as well, particularly in areas like Clipmanager, where we are disadvantaged in terms of the allocation of funding. Moving forward from the funding review, there is now an implementation board and they have identified some deliverables that they're looking for. I actually attend that national meeting. There has been 2 meetings so far. I'm sure you can appreciate there's a bit of jostling about what kind of formula will be required. And it actually aligns with our Justice Services formula for funding as well, where they're for justice in particular, they are looking at 6 different funding formulas. And I would imagine that will be the same idea moving forward in terms of violence against women and girls. What I would say is everybody is in agreement that there is a massive shortfall there. It's just how they can calculate that, because obviously what we are doing just now, we need to be looking at how we can sustain that beyond the 2-year period.
Can I just close your question off, Councillor Forson, just to say in terms of the outcomes. So I think it's important for any of these areas, just as Colin suggested, this is an accumulation of work over time. It's not just 1 year's piece of work, and but we continue to evolve all the time. But there are more women in Clipmanager now receiving support. I think that's a definite impact from the work. And there's a reduction in convictions for domestic violence in Clipmanager in terms of the figures and where we appear in those stats across all the local authorities. And there's also more perpetrators now receiving support through the non-mandated and the Caledonian programme. So I think in terms of outcomes and impact of the work that we're doing, there is a direct impact on people in our communities. That's not to say that we've not got a long way to go, but the work is showing some direct impact.
Thanks, Chair. It's page 72, which is about health and wellbeing, and it's specifically in relation to the suicides documents. I don't know if you've got something. Okay, so in the top box, it's about the increased uptake of text Clipmanager. So the first couple of bullet points talking about continued suicide continuing the most common reason for individuals accessing it. The next one talks about no texters have required an active rescue of emergency services, and statement around processes embedded within the service evidence and the reduction in harm, which is good. Then it's then followed by the bullet point which talks about a 22% increase in the number of conversations and a 65% increase in the number of individuals using the platform. Is it too complacent or naive to assume that's about a better awareness or positive feedback around that service? Or is this an increase in numbers of people who feel they need to access the service for that purpose?
Thank you. I think it's probably a bit of both. I think we are seeing an increased number of people who are needing to access that service to discuss thoughts of suicide, and awareness raising is a key part of what we need to do to make sure that people have that support available when they need it. The bit about reduction in harm is around the processes and procedures that are in place within that platform to make sure that it is capable of dealing with that level of risk. That's one of the key factors of us actually approaching and using that service, is to make sure that it can cope with people who are at that point of immediate harm. So the fact that there are no active rescues across the 3 or 4 years that we've used that service now is a really positive thing. And there's newly released suicide figures that have come out just in the last week that show that the suicide rate in Clipmanager has dropped over the past year. Unfortunately, our 5-year average is still higher than the rest of Forth Valley, but that's largely due to a spike in probable suicides back in 2020. The rates have dropped off year on year since then, so we're hopeful that the supports that are available, including some of the other mental health services that go into supporting mental health before it gets to this point.
Okay, thanks. Just a couple of other points then. The first one still relates to that same box, but it talks about suicide and self-harm guidelines for school being revised. I take it that's just about continuous improvement rather than something that's been identified as a problem that needs rewritten.
Again, probably a bit of both. The suicide and self-harm guidance for Stirling and Clats hadn't been rewritten for a number of years. There's a number of sort of qualitative improvements that we want to make to that. The fact that at the moment it's suicide and self-harm guidance, they're put together as one. We want to separate that out, partly due to stigma reduction, but also just in terms of being really clear with school staff what it is that they're dealing with. So that work is underway, and we're hoping that will be launched within the next couple of months. Again, there's key parts around that, around supporting and supervising staff in terms of how they roll out the new guidance. It obviously is something that feels quite nerve-wracking for staff when they're dealing with these sorts of issues, so making sure that they're supported. So we're undertaking training within my service to ensure that we're able to support that and roll that out across the schools.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So the last one then, it's the box below, which is about the continuing support available within the mental health and wellbeing and managed transformation project. So things like the animal assisted therapy and play therapy stuff, really good anecdotal, feedback in terms of the impact those kind of things have. It talks about 62% of usage taking place out of hours. Are we able to, or are the services able to accommodate that need sufficient out of hours, or is it difficult to be able to access it?
So the out of hours usage refers to our digital services, and that's why we would always promote and actively work towards having a continuum of support that is available between digital and face-to-face, because digital services allow us to meet that need out of hours when it's harder for us to provide face-to-face support. So the 62% of usage is for the digital services where people are needing support from people where we're not typically available face-to-face. It is something that we would look at in terms of some of our face-to-face services, but there are challenges within that in terms of contracts and having availability of staff out of hours. That's why we have that layer of support around the clock from these other services.
No one else wish to address? Can we have a move for the paper, please? No?
Yep, I'm happy to move the paper, and I think as Marie said, this is a new style of reporting, and I think it's recognising the shift that we're trying to take in the council away from silo working to make sure that everything's a lot more joined up together and that we can actually, I suppose, deliver on the outcomes that we've all agreed are priorities. I think this is a really good kind of first attempt at this. I'm sure there'll be lots of refining as we go through. There is so much in the report, and I think there is so much positive and good work in here that's going on. Two areas that I kind of ask questions on, understandably, because I am the council's champion for the promise and the council's champion for equalities. And as a council, when we're making investment in significant areas, we need to be making sure that the investment is actually delivering results. And I think as the information that we've heard there today, in both the promise and the violence against women and girls areas, the investments that we're making are starting to deliver results. And I think these will be felt more widespread over the council, because both of these areas, specifically for Clackmannanshire, are something that have a huge impact. I've just finished by saying it's a happy council leader when you get a Fontana report with lots of green ticks there. I think there was only one that was an amber, and only 85% of the way there. So overall, it's a great report, fantastic work from the service, and I'm just sorry that we kind of get a bit more into the depths of it all in this meeting, but hopefully as we move forward and we have more attendance at the meeting, we'll actually get there. So brilliant, thank you.
Can I have a second different paper, please? So, do you all agree with paper? Okay. Do you wish to debate the paper? I know it's a bit fast for and is it the paper accepted? Thank you very much.
Sorry, Chair, can I just check that the second recommendation in the report has been accepted and that we're taking it to go forward to Council? We'll make that action.
So the recommendation is recommended the Audit Scrutiny Committee endorse the one plan, one report approach, and recommend to Council that this approach is further considered across other directorates and across the Council. Is that agreed? So we first to take this. We now move on to item 8 on the agenda. The Health and Social Care Partnership, Comanche Locality Performance Report on the half year. And we have Wendy Forrester. Thank you, Wendy. Would you like to address the committee?
Thank you, Convener, and thank you for the opportunity to come this morning and present what is actually last year's half-year performance report. These reports, members will remember, were previously provided as part of the ongoing reporting into this committee. And although there isn't an approval process, it is about the oversight and assurance that the services are being delivered in line with the expectations of the Council in terms of those statutory social work services. These reports were ceased during the COVID pandemic as a result of us being asked to focus through the COVID Act on urgent and statutory work within that space. So this is the first report we've presented to this committee for some time. You will see within the report we have been using the Pintana system, and we've been using that to allow members to be able to scrutinise just some of the activity that's included. If there is activity that you would wish to see included as part of this report, I'm happy to take that back and try and source it. What we've done is tried to reflect what was previously reported, but as you will imagine, the way that services is delivered has changed significantly post-pandemic, and the partnership continues to be in a process of recovery as part of that recovery from COVID, and just ensuring that we are delivering statutory services but also making use best value of the funding that is delegated into the Integration Joint Board from Clackmannanshire and Stirling Council, as well as NHS Forth Valley. So we have themed the report around the new strategic commissioning plan, which was agreed last March. This plan absolutely aligns with the priorities of Clackmannanshire Council and the actions, outcomes for people that you would expect us to be delivering against. I'm happy to take any questions, I'm assuming that members have had the opportunity to review what's presented. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, have any questions on this report? I see no questions. Any members wish to debate the report? A proposal for the report, please.
Sorry, can't hear you.
Can we have a proposal for the report, please? Moved by Councillor Harris, seconder. Councillor Forson, seconder. Do you wish to debate the report? Debate. Is it unanimously agreed? So unanimously agreed to note the performance of Comanche locality within the Comanche and Stirling HSEP. Yep.
Thank you.
Getting there. We now move on to item 8 on the agenda, which is the draft audit and scrutiny committee forward plan for 2024-25. And as you see for paragraph 2, there are a list of recommendations and agreements. Chris?
Thank you, Chair. The paper as presented asks committee to consider and approve the draft forward plan for committee business for 2024-25. Agree that committee members complete a self-evaluation questionnaire based on the SIPFA position statement. Agree committee will meet and consider the outputs of this evaluation, which will then inform the committee's annual report. And finally, agree the proposed training plan for 2024-25. The Audit and Scrutiny Committee plays a key role in the governance arrangements of the Council. The draft forward plan aims to ensure committee are able to fully undertake their role, as well as reflecting the remit of the Audit and Scrutiny Committee. The remit includes receiving, reviewing and considering reports on Council finance, value for money and best value, considering and monitoring the Council's annual governance statement, considering internal audit reports on the results of internal audit investigations, considering the effectiveness of the Council's risk management procedures and controls, monitoring Council services, including the HSCP, monitoring police and fire performance against plans approved by Council. Whilst the forward plan reflects the core remit, committee are asked to be aware that the plan may vary during the course of the year to accommodate unanticipated events. In relation to the evaluation of effectiveness, the Chartered Institute of Professional Finance and Accountancy, SIPFA, expects local authorities to make their best efforts to adopt the principles of the SIPFA position statement. Committee will recall that they completed a questionnaire last year based on the SIPFA's position statement and committed to do so on an annual basis to allow an annual report to be produced. External audit have also indicated they will monitor progress on any areas of improvement identified from the evaluation. In relation to training, whilst a training plan was developed and agreed last year, it was not fully implemented. The proposed training plan this year seeks to ensure that those areas identified by committee are fully implemented during this year. In addition, we've added in a mock committee for members to attend in order to review areas of where questioning should have been asked. I'm happy to take any questions committee may have in advance of the paper being moved.
Members, do we have any questions on this report for Chris? We have a proposal for the paper, please. Is it then? And seconded? Is it here? Do you wish to debate the paper? No debate. Is this paper unanimously agreed? Agreed? Okay. So unanimously agreed the recommendation contained within paragraph 2 of the paper. Without me going through all the recommendations. Okay. That's us for today. I see that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attendance.